I think a lot of people overlook and glance over the 2015 NBA season and the possibilities and opportunities for different franchises, let alone for different teams that could actually have that window opportunity to win a championship whenever it comes to it in place. Hey guys, J2K, the reason I'm having this video here, I really want to shed light on the 2014-2015 Dallas Mavericks and the potential they had to, let alone get to a conference finals and possibly head off to the NBA finals. Now listen, with Mark Cuban and the crew, they set up a championship team in 2011. Mavericks got it done against the Miami Heat, and granted, credit to Dirk Nowitzki getting his first championship, let alone second finals appearance. After that, we saw Mark Cuban go with different directions of trying to obtain Deron Williams, or as well as Dwight Howard in free agency, letting go of Tyson Chandler, Jason Terry, Jason Kidd in the future, and as well as the Mavericks were in, they weren't in contention when it comes to going deep in the playoffs, let alone being known as a championship contender. And that was the reason from 2012 through 2014, we've seen with those last three seasons, the Mavericks were out in the first round of the playoffs, let alone really searching and looking to get back into the playoffs, go deeper into possibly a finals appearance, if anything, to give Dirk Nowitzki his last championship run. Now, entering the 2014-2015 season, the Mavericks were in a great direction, especially of signing a rim protector, bringing back Tyson Chandler back on the team. This brought back the culture and the hope for the franchise, so you can actually pair Dirk Nowitzki, instead of Samuel Dallenberg, cats like Zion Diop, Eric Dampier, centers of that range. You can actually now bring in a very legitimate center, not Ryan Highlands. No, they brought in Tyson Chandler back onto the team. This brought back that defensive anchor and that championship mindset for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, let alone, they have Monte Ellis on their team. This is the second season for him. He was emerging as a quote-unquote all-star for the team, and let alone took on the offense, helped out Dirk Nowitzki. And as a small forward, they did have Chandler Parsons they did bring in, and who was an effective player during that time period before his injuries. And so now we're looking at free agency. Their team was looking very nice before the Rajon Rondo trade. Kind of going into their starting lineup, they had Jamiro Nelson, very underrated as a point guard that can be a championship contending point guard for a team. Perfect fit when you had Monte Ellis with them. They were small. They were around 6 feet and 6'3" as a small backcourt. But let alone the Mavericks were one of the better defensive teams when it came to that year. As small forward, you had Chandler Parsons, Dirk Nowitzki, and then Tyson Chandler at the 5. And we saw immediately with that team, they started to click. They were around 12 deep whenever it comes to it. When you're looking at their bench, you had an emergence of a young player of Al-Farouq Aminu, who was playing the small forward position for them. It was kind of like a current-day Dorian Finney-Smith Jr. And you had J.J. Barea back on the team. Jay Crowder was emerging as well as a young player. This was around his second or third season with the Mavericks. He was always effective as a 3-and-D player. Raymond Felton was underrated as a third option for a point guard. You did have Devin Harris on the team. Richard Jefferson was on the team as well. And then as well as more with your bench, you had Dwight Powell, who's emerging. You had Amari Stoudemire, pretty much one of his last seasons and years. Brandon Wright, very underrated center, who I think should be in the league as of right now. And same thing with Charlie Villanueva. Within that team, guys, you have 13 players who can actually be effective and go deep in the playoffs to help you out. The Mavericks were emerging as one of the best teams in the NBA. Very quiet to be kept until the trade went down with Rajon Rondo. And looking at it, I love Rondo that he was part of the trade, that the Mavericks got him, but I didn't like that they gave away too much of their depth and their identity when it came to it. I thought this was a forced move, but the Mavericks were looking to get deep in the playoffs, give Dirk Nowitzki a championship point guard for their team. So within that trade, they actually traded Rajon Rondo, and they let go of Brandon Wright, Jay Crowder, Jamiro Nelson, and then a 2015 first-round draft pick, as well as a future second-round pick. Before the Rondo trade went down, the Dallas Mavericks were 18-8. They were catching a groove with their team, as well as they were one of the top 3, top 4 teams in the Western Conference. We got to remember, guys, during that time period, LeBron James left the Miami Heat. He joined Cleveland. There were some kind of questions of if they would even make the finals during that season. In the Western Conference, the San Antonio Spurs were still in the mix. pretty much to maybe catch another championship, because they just came off 2014 winning the NBA championship. So you had the Spurs in the mix. The Golden State Warriors, people were looking at them around as a fifth seed. They thought that's what their expectations would be. They took the league over the storm, even in the Western Conference, and there was an emergence of the Houston Rockets as well. But the Dallas Mavericks were still candidate to come out of the Western Conference. As a low-key wise, though, a lot of people were looking in the West that it would be the Spurs, maybe even the Oklahoma City Thunder. Unfortunately, during that time, Kevin Durant was hurt for the remaining 30 to 40 games, so he was out. The Mavericks had a good chance to really go in for a finals appearance, let alone represent the Western Conference. As we've seen here, guys, back in December 18th, again, Rondo was traded. The Mavs let go of Brandon Wright, a great backup center for their team with length, and as well as they let go of Jay Crowder, great 3-and-D player, and Jamiro Nelson, their starting point guard. Unfortunately, when it came to Rajon Rondo and the Dallas Mavericks, things did not click. There was a lot of butting heads with him and head coach Rick Carlisle, and pretty much we saw nothing was really clicking with the Mavericks. They actually finished the season with 50-32 record, 7th in the Western Conference. This was not expected at all. You know, if they would have kept their original team, I expected them to finish top 3, top 4 in the Western Conference. Worst case scenario, alongside with the Golden State Warriors, and as well as the Rockets and possibly the Clippers in the mix right there. I thought the Mavericks would have had a better record than that. They should have looked to finish around 55 games, 55 to 60 wins during that season if they would have kept their original team, but it is what it is. They faced off the Rockets in the first round, lost in 5 games to James Harden and Dwight Howard and the crew. We really saw during that series with Rajon Rondo that he did give up on his team, especially in that game 2 of the series. Rick Carlisle decided to pull him out, and the rest was history. So the Mavericks lost their starting point guard, Rajon Rondo. They didn't have Brandon Wright, Jay Crowder, Jamiro Nelson, and their depth was still respectable, but it wasn't there to what it could have been. They pretty much lost their identity within the team whenever it came to it. So with the Mavericks, I expected them, if they would have kept their original team, to get to the conference finals. I think they would have faced off against the Rockets in the second round. If they had their original team and faced off the Warriors in the conference finals, who knows what would have happened? Kind of let me know what you guys think down below, and if you guys have looked more into this conversation and this topic about Rondo, and as well as if the trade never went down, and how the Mavericks would have performed that season.